So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name's Emily
Okay.
Persinger. I'm an animal science major at University of Maryland. Um, you want to introduce yourself as well, just like your name and like your position, career?
Sure. So my name is Amy Iafolla, and I work for Triple Crown Nutrition. And my current role within Triple Crown is actually a store support specialist for the Tractor Supply store locations across the country. So,
Right, so I guess we'll start the questions.
okay.
What is the required education needed to become an equine nutritionist?
So yeah, Emily, when I looked through your list of questions, I just wanted to clarify on that portion of it. So as far as a true nutritionist, that typically is going to be somebody with a PhD, potentially with a master's, but typically a PhD. And so I guess there's just a little bit of difference there's a lot of difference actually between what I do. So I would consider myself more of like a feed rep or a nutrition consultant or whatever you say there. And then we have a PhD, as will most, major feed companies have a PhD nutritionist who's gone on and done their doctorate, who actually does like the formulation and then is somebody else that we have to rely on for more in-depth questions that we may not be able to answer.
Okay.
So yeah, for somebody in my type of position, so a lot of the feed companies across the country, where we're essentially feed reps, most of us will have a bachelor's degree in either equine science or animal science, are typically what most everybody has.
Thank you. We kind of already talked about the education portion of this, but is there any like additional training or experience that you think is important or helpful?
Yeah, so most of us, again, in industry will do continuing education programs. A lot of us are certified in what's called ARPAS, which is American Registry of Professional Animal Scientists. So through that, we have to have continuing educations throughout the year. Typically things like ESS, which is Equine Science Society, MANC, the Mid-Atlantic Nutrition Conference, AAEP for American Association of Equine Practitioners. I have to remember all the acronyms. And then obviously at this point in time, this year is a little different. We're doing more online webinars and things like that. And a lot of organizations are allowing us to get continuing education through online webinars, and it doesn't have to necessarily be in person given the situation we're in. And then the other thing as far as experience that I would say is, especially as younger students who are potentially looking at a career in this, is to get real practical experience, working at a farm, maybe shadowing somebody, doing an internship with a feed company, again, if this is something you're really interested in. I think, and certainly this is not to discount formal education, because obviously we've all done that. But there's a lot of things, there are a lot of people that can spout off a lot of things in a textbook, but we need to be able to apply that in the real world as well. And so it doesn't always work in the real world. So getting hands-on experience would be my other words of advice.
Yeah, I know we talk a lot about in class when we're going through all like the careers and everything, about how important it was to literally just be working with horses and just like being around horses and like your behavior around them, and like that just takes time and like experience with them.
Right. Yeah.
So what is a day in your like just an everyday kind of like work day for you?
Yeah.
I mean, I know now it's probably a little different.
Yeah, I was going to say, now it's very different. So again, I'll kind of give you a little bit of a view into like what Dr. Vandergrift would be. So our PhD nutritionist, certainly he's answering a lot of questions, doing consultations, either on farm, if possible, over the phone, via email, those sorts of things. Certainly he does all of our feed formulations and all of that, keeps up on the latest research, looks into potential new products, those types of things. For those of us who are reps, so back in my old career prior to being, in COVID shutdown, if you will, I was doing a lot of on-farm calls. So my I've shifted positions a little bit within Triple Crown over the past year or so, in that I was traveling all up and down the East Coast, and I was working with a lot of farms, the store locations that sell our products, veterinarians, those types of things. So I was doing, a lot of farm calls, talking to people, looking at horses, making feeding recommendations, that sort of thing. At this point in time, since I've switched into this role, strictly on the tractor supply side and strictly as store support, I still work a lot with customers, but I'm working now with the entire country. So I do a lot more virtual type things. So I might do some trainings, answer questions, again, serve as kind of some nutrition support, tech support, if you will, for stores and customers. And for our reps who are still doing some traveling, they've started to do a little bit of travel. Certainly we've had to reevaluate how we do that. So we're getting a little creative with doing body condition scores with FaceTime and Zoom calls and going through the barn and those sorts of things. So it really looks very different now than what
I bet. So this is kind of going off that of like what other areas of the horse industry that you frequently work with, either as clients or like colleagues.
Yeah, so kind of runs the gamut, again, depending on what's going on. But certainly we work with all aspects of the horse industry, all disciplines, all breeds, all different classes from that standpoint. And then also with, so obviously that would be the horse owner end of things. And then also like veterinarians and farriers, we do a lot of work with those guys. And then also store employees. So be it what we would consider an independent dealer, so a privately owned store location that sells our product, or more of a chain type location like a Tractor Supply, working with those store employees or those store owners as well. So we work with a lot of different people. And then certainly, folks in higher education and stuff, certainly, Dr. Amy Burke and, a lot of the professors at, a lot of the major universities across the country as well. So kind of a lot of different people in different aspects of the horse industry.
What are some of the biggest challenges you have to face on a day-to-day basis? And I know now how like you were talking about the body condition score and virtually, and I actually remember like our lab activities this week. There was a video it was on body condition scoring, and I was actually like a Triple Crown video, and I'm just remembering.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I probably just like other challenges like beside the whole COVID situation,
like non-COVID related. Yeah. So I would say, and this might sound kind of mean, but I was like, no, this truly is a bit of a challenge. One of the things that I think we all run into is the plethora of incorrect information that's on the internet. We kind of jokingly refer to it as Dr. Google and Dr. Blog. And, I think there's a lot of people, a lot of horse owners who use the internet, and certainly there's a lot of great information out there too. But they get in a lot of these, chat rooms or blog posts and things like that. And that has probably, and I think one of your questions was one of the things that has changed in the time that I've been in the industry. That becomes more and more prevalent, I'm finding. And so just trying to combat some of the incorrect information that is online is definitely a challenge.
What do you believe are the most important qualities to have in your career?
So I think, and again, it kind of depends on which, what end of the spectrum you're on. Like if you're at that PhD level, certainly, obviously, you have to be extremely smart and extremely science oriented. And, for those of us who are more in that feed rep role, certainly we still have to have a science background and have to be able to talk, in an educated way about that. but we have somebody as backup, if it's a question that we don't know. So for us, I would say one of the biggest things, I would say two of the biggest things probably are, one, you have to really be able to work with a lot of different types of people, because we really do run the gamut. Like I might talk to somebody who has a $500,000 racehorse one day and a $500 pony the next day that is just toting kids around the backyard. So you really, I think, have to be. When I first started, a mentor of mine referred to it as being a little chameleon like. Like you kind of have to be able to fit into a variety of different groups of people, disciplines, all of that sort of thing. And then the other thing, again, especially for those of us who are feed rep related, most of us are working from home. Even pre-COVID, our offices are based out of our home, and then we travel in a given area, based on geography. And so I think a lot of self-discipline, because it's not like you're going into an office every day. And it's not like your boss is, there checking in on you or in the cubicle next door or anything like that. So you have to have the self-motivation to get up and go out and, go to work every day and be productive without somebody looking over your shoulder all the time.
That's interesting. Those were two good ones. Okay, and then just the last question is, what is the favorite part about your career?
So I think for me it is the ability to do something with horses every day. Like horses have, always been my passion growing up with it. But I learned very quickly out of college that working in a barn all day, every day, although I thought at that time that's what I wanted to do, realized was not really what I wanted to do. So it lets me, again, this is my personal take on it, but it lets me do something with horses in a career that I'm passionate about. But God forbid, should I have a broken arm or a broken leg or something, I can still do my job. Yeah. And I'm not breaking up ice in water buckets in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So.
Perfect. Well, that's all the questions. Thank you so much.
Sure.